You're listening to Real Life, No Filter, where raw emotions and real moments take center stage. No masks, no filters. Just honest stories about life, love, and everything in between. Get comfortable. We're about to begin. There you see Eleanor Smith. Everything is fine with your daughter, Anna Baker said confidently, examining little Sophie. The baby was just 2 months old, but she seemed to have already grown another couple of centimeters since her last visit. Anna Baker checked the infant's arms and legs, making sure the rash was not dangerous. Oh, thank goodness, the young mother breathed with relief. Thank you, Dr. Baker, for coming right away. As soon as I saw that rash, I started imagining all sorts of horrors. I didn't have time to think of everything. No need for that. There's no need to invent things, the pediatrician said, finishing the examination. It's better to call me right away, otherwise you get nervous yourself, and you worry the baby with your mood. And they feel everything, even though they're just tiny little things, aren't they? Anna smiled at the little one, and she cooed back happily. Eleanor put a hand to her heart and said sincerely, "Oh, what would we do here without you? How wonderful that they send such wonderful and caring specialists to us, even in such a remote place." Anna didn't answer, just smiled politely in return and began packing her medical bag. The woman was 35 this year, but she had been working and living in Ust-Tayozhny, a small tiger village lost in the depths of the Siberian wilderness, for almost 2 years. Anna had been allocated a small bright house and her own office in the local hospital, the only one for dozens of kilometers around. Despite the fact that Anna, being a native of Pryrochensk, was accustomed to completely different conditions in her work and daily life, the modest and somewhat harsh life of the Siberian wilderness did not frighten her at all. The woman found a special spirituality in such an existence. It was like what monks felt praying in their ascetic cells in ancient monasteries. "Dr. Baker! Dr. Baker! Wait!" The pediatrician heard a familiar voice behind her. Susan Miller, a kind-hearted blonde woman who worked on the local farm, hurried towards her, carrying a large enameled can. "Susan, what are you doing? You mustn't run like that. You might fall," she said, watching the woman rushing towards her. "Yes." Susan just waved her hand brightly. "Nothing will happen to me. We're all used to it here." Panting after her quick walk, Susan continued. "Sometimes you rush to the cow before dawn, thinking, just let everything be all right with her, especially if she's expecting a calf. Dr. Baker, I've brought you some fresh milk. We had an especially good yield today." The village resident held out the can to Anna. "Oh, Susan, you shouldn't." The doctor tried to refuse. However, the milkmaid was very persistent. "Take it, take it." She shook her head. Susan insisted. "You know how much of this stuff I have at home, and you need it more. You have such important work. You treat our children, making rounds every day until night. For you, not just milk. Nothing is too much trouble at all." Susan lowered her voice. "Do you know what kind of doctor we had before you?" The previous doctor almost spat on the ground in irritation, remembering the previous pediatrician. She basically didn't care about the children. All she did was come to the hospital to chatter, discuss all the gossip, smear her face with all sorts of cosmetics, and then, well, wag her tail in front of our medical assistant. Anna hurried to take the can and thank the milkmaid. She felt that Susan was about to get on her favorite hobby horse again, and so it happened. But no matter what that Pryrochensk goat did, Susan continued to rant. No matter how she tried to charm him, our David Adams wasn't going to notice her at all. You could drop dead. "I understand, Susie, but I really must go. I still have a lot of paperwork to check at the hospital. However, Susan was unstoppable. She couldn't calm down until she had expressed all her thoughts and feelings completely. Such was her broad village nature. David Adams is a bird of a completely different feather. He's… what's his name? The woman recalled the right word, pausing for a second. Ah, I remember. He needs a completely different kind of girl. Susan looked at Anna with cheerful cunning and finished. He needs to find a wife like you, quiet, calm, someone who adores children. The young pediatrician blushed, feeling herself turning red to the roots of her hair. Susan, please, you really shouldn't. Dr. Baker, you should take a look at him. Susan continued. Ever since David Adams lost his wife, Laura, he's been like a bean for 5 years. The local crowd doesn't suit him. He came to us from the capital too, back in the day. Anna sincerely wished the ground would swallow her up at that moment. Quickly mumbling something about being in a hurry, she thanked her again for the milk and hurried away from Susan Miller. Everyone, literally everyone in the village, was trying to marry her off to the local medical assistant, David Adams. Anna didn't argue. He was a handsome man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a dignified gait, and only 5 years older than her. However, despite the attention David Adams himself showed her, Anna did not reciprocate. For her, the handsome medical assistant widower was just a pleasant colleague who aroused absolutely no feelings in the woman. And how could it be otherwise, if another person had forever occupied a place in the heart of the young pediatrician? Her own husband. Anna hurried to chase away the sad thoughts. Especially since the modest building of their rural hospital, painted in beige and light grey tones, was already looming ahead. Going up the steps of the porch, the woman involuntarily thought about how lucky she was that the local residents had welcomed her so warmly and friendly. It was well known that not every stranger, especially one from Pryrachensk, could win the trust of rural residents. Anna, however, had managed to become practically one of their own, largely because she was literally obsessed with her work. And now, entering her small, cozy office, the woman wanted to immediately start filling out some papers. Her attention was drawn to a huge, lush bouquet standing on her desk. Someone had managed to put the flowers in a vase, so a wonderful, fresh scent filled the room. No, not this again, flashed through the pediatrician's mind. I've asked so many times. Dr. Baker, knock knock. May I come in? David Adams, beaming his perfect snow-white smile, slowly squeezed between the door and her office. And good day to you, David Adams. Anna put on a polite smile. I suppose these flowers are from you? Anna asked. Do you like them? He decided to cheer you up a little. You've been looking quite sad lately. Is everything all right? Anna placed the can under the table and exhaled confidently. Couldn't be better. Only you shouldn't have spent so much. The woman shifted her gaze back to the bouquet. Just wishing me a good day is enough. We've discussed this, David Adams. I am strictly against any signs of attention at work, and outside of work too, for that matter. Adams's smile faded slightly. However, the man was not going to give up without a fight. You know, Annie, sometimes I think you're deliberately teasing me, the medical assistant said, his face unchanged. David continued, Only I don't understand why you're doing this to me, honestly. I'm even starting to run out of ideas about what else I could do to please you. Anna looked tiredly at her persistent suitor. David, how much longer? How else can I explain to you that there can be nothing personal between us? I understand it's hard for you to accept the fact that I don't want to date you, but let's face it. We just want different things from life. Our characters don't match. What can you do about that? The young doctor looked pleadingly at the medical assistant. She had lost count of how many times she had tried to explain such seemingly elementary things to him. "Is it because you still love your husband?" The man asked her a painful question. Adams knew that Anna didn't like to remember her past life in Pryrochensk, and yet he never missed an opportunity to remind her of the reasons for her move to Ust-Tayozhny. The woman's face immediately became impassive. "Excuse me, David Adams, but I am really very busy right now. I'm afraid we have nothing more to talk about." "I understand your feelings better than anyone, Anna. Believe me, I've been in your shoes," Adams said in a serious tone. "However, sooner or later you'll still have to return to real life. Sometimes we just have to accept that the closest, dearest people leave us." David finished. "By letting go, you'll finally be able to look around and see that there are people nearby who care about you. I will be waiting for you, Anna. I hope you will soon understand that we have every chance of creating a wonderful family." Anna looked at the medical assistant, her lips trembling and her eyes full of tears. "David, please!" the woman cried out, pale, unable to control her emotions, and then simply burst into tears, dropping her head into her hands. "Cry, Anna, cry," Adams said quietly, leaving her office. "Maybe tears will sober you up. How long can you pretend to be a steel lady?" The woman didn't answer him. She was simply unable to speak right now. So the medical assistant had to leave her, finally leaving Anna in the solitude she so desired. Anna's mood was completely and irrevocably ruined. The rest of the day, the pediatrician spent filling out the medical records of her little patients and their mothers, as well as seeing babies directly at the hospital. The young woman tried to behave as usual, friendly and polite. However, her heart ached. A familiar dull pain combined with strong anxiety began to gradually fill her heart from the moment David forced her to remember her husband again. "Robert," the girl addressed him mentally every time she felt unbearably miserable. "I believe we will meet again. Let others say whatever they want. Remind me however they want that you are surely no longer alive. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I never will. You are so strong, so brave. You couldn't have just—" In the evening, already preparing for bed, Anna sat for a long time in front of the mirror, looking at her face, drawn from heavy thoughts and worries. Who would have thought that in just 3 years, the once young, energetic Anna would suddenly turn into a woman withered by grief? Her grey hair, shimmering with silver threads in her once perfect dark blonde hair, made her look much older and more serious than she really was before. The young pediatrician loved to read before bed, not professional literature, but the most popular fiction she could get her hands on. Fortunately, in those days, living in the capital, the girl had no shortage of books. Here, the most she could afford was a magazine called Herald of Medicine, and that was by subscription, which she had so thoughtfully arranged at the post office the same day she moved to the village. No online store delivered books to such a distant and remote region. And to be completely honest, Anna was no longer drawn to intricate detective stories or magical adventures in romance novels, which she had once loved so much. The world had long since lost all its colours for her, and only her work somehow kept the woman afloat. By plunging headfirst into the problems of newborns and their young, and sometimes not so young mothers, Anna thus drowned her own pain. The pain that stung her in the very centre of her soul every time the woman remembered that she herself was unable to have children. Anna got up from the table where the small mirror stood and caught a glimpse of how thin and unattractive her figure had become. The expression that love dries up a lonely woman described her perfectly during that difficult period of her life. She was lonely, and she loved, loved with all her soul and all her heart, selflessly and boundlessly, one single person who, most likely, was no longer alive. But pediatrician Anna Baker could not even entertain the thought of, as David Adams put it, accepting and letting go. But despite all the darkest moments of her thoughts, in the very same heart where the persistent pain now surged, there was still a faint hope. Hope that lifted Anna every morning and made her believe that one beautiful day she would still hear the familiar warm voice of her beloved husband. That night, the woman could not close her eyes. Her thoughts kept returning to her past, to those wonderful and easy years when she and her husband were truly happy, and nothing overshadowed their quiet family joy. They made big plans for the future and had no idea that all the happiness they had built with such effort and perseverance could collapse in an instant. Anna felt tears streaming down her cheeks again. "Oh my God," the woman whispered to herself. "Robert, my dear, forgive me. I'm such a sentimental little fool." Before the poor baker's inner eye, colourful pictures of the years spent with her husband involuntarily flashed again, gradually plunging the woman into a deep, yet at the same time beautiful and sad dream. A dream that the healer of children's ailments herself would have preferred not to see at all, so as not to become even more emotional after her inevitable awakening. Once upon a time, Anna had a completely different life. The bright lights of Prirachensk, work in one of the best clinics in the city, meetings with friends on weekends, and shopping trips to fashionable boutiques. All this was an integral part of the young pediatrician's daily life. Anna was born into a good, respected family of doctors. Her mother worked in gynecology all her life, while her father was one of the leading surgeons in the largest hospital. The girl always saw the example of her parents before her eyes. Strong, purposeful, they went straight to their goal and achieved everything themselves thanks to their own hard work and natural talents, as well as the desire to constantly learn and develop in their chosen field. But besides all that, they also loved each other madly. Despite having lived together for almost 25 years, their daughter dreamed of continuing the noble dynasty of doctors, choosing pediatric medicine for herself. Thus, Anna was able to combine two of her passions in one profession: medicine and working with children. The girl studied easily and with pleasure, and effortlessly graduated from medical school with honors. After that, she almost immediately got a job in one of the best clinics in the city. From there, she gradually moved to an excellent private clinic, where she worked for the next few years, gradually improving her professional qualifications. She met Robert when she was already an adult and self-sufficient young woman. She was 26 years old then. The young rescue service employee completely captivated Anna with his strength, masculinity, but at the same time softness and kindness. Anna had never met such an understanding man as Robert. At that time, she had already had several unsuccessful relationships behind her and had become disillusioned with the opposite sex, planning to devote herself entirely to work alone. That year, she and a couple of other specialists from the clinic were sent under a general quota to attend so-called survival courses, and it was there that the girl first saw her future husband. The muscular blonde instructor immediately made her heart beat faster. His neat 3-day stubble looked so natural, yet stylish, that Anna involuntarily thought to herself, "Does he maintain it in some special way to keep it in such an attractive state for all women?" Being naturally shy, Anna wasn't sure if this amazing young man would notice her. So she just continued her training, trying to focus on the main reason she had been sent there in the first place. "So, you like our handsome instructor too?" Natalie, her roommate in the dormitory for student employees who had come for the courses, and also a young gynecologist, teased Anna. Natalie continued. And he's no fool, is he? Did you see how dignified he is? As if he knows that if he beckoned love from us, we'd immediately fall for him? Oh, leave me alone, Nat. Anna waved her off then, but felt her usually calm and clear face flush. What nonsense are you talking about again? He's handsome, of course, but nothing more. Aha! You were staring at him with wide eyes when he was giving that mannequin artificial respiration, her friend joked. I bet you imagined him doing the same thing to you. Natalie rolled her eyes dreamily, and Anna just grimaced, wrinkling her charming nose. Ugh, Nat, you're a grown girl, but you're acting worse than a teenager, honestly. How disgusting. What's disgusting? Do you think if you play the saint, he'll immediately pay attention to you? Natalie easily ran her fingers through her curly hair. Natalie advised, You need to be bolder, Annie. Nowadays, men don't value modesty in women, but what is scientifically called initiative? Well, let others keep their initiative. I'm a fan of more classic courtship methods, Anna replied calmly. If we are destined to meet, he will state his intention first. Anna finished, and I, as a decent girl, will still see if it's worth building a relationship with him, or if he's just a frivolous man, in a word. Natalie shook her head reproachfully. That's why Peter and Paul ran away from you, both with their heels flashing, she concluded good-naturedly. Natalie warned, You're too picky, and you think too long before taking the first step. Look, Annie, there are a lot of different beauties hanging around here besides you and me. They might get ahead of you. I don't need him, Nat. Calm down. Anna flared up, unable to bear it, but immediately felt her heart beat anxiously. Her heart was beating as if she was already jealous of this Robert for some ephemeral other beauties her roommate had just told her about. All right, I'm quiet. She smiled and, turning over in her bed, added, Tomorrow is our final class. This is your chance. Use it, or you'll miss your happiness again. Anna didn't answer, just turned to the wall. Her face was burning as if it had been rubbed with red pepper, and her heart was beating like a gong in her chest. The girl thought Natalie would hear this strange sound in the silence of the night room. For the first time since her last breakup, and perhaps in her entire life, Anna felt such strong emotions towards a man she barely knew. What nonsense, the girl chided herself. You haven't even exchanged words with him sometimes in these 2 weeks, and you're already seeing him as your fiancé. Silly girl, go to sleep. Nat is right. Tomorrow is an important day, the last class, which you need to pass with flying colours. You didn't come here for nothing, did you? With such anxious thoughts, the girl fell asleep that night. Strangely enough, the next day passed completely calmly. Anna passed her exam with a solid A and was preparing to go with other girls to a creative evening organised for them by the base staff. Just as the girl was meticulously examining herself in the mirror, trying to make sure the dress she had chosen wasn't too short for such an event. There was a quiet knock on her door. Come in! Who is it? The girl called out into the hallway, simultaneously adjusting the massive, round silver earrings with enamel in her ears. Someone silently entered and stopped behind Anna. The girl started, seeing a familiar yet unexpected reflection in the mirror. Is that you? Oh my God, you startled me! Anna exclaimed, turning around. Standing before her was the very instructor, Robert Baker, whom she had thought about so often in the past few days. Excuse me, I didn't mean to. The guy faltered and shyly lowered his stunning blue eyes. In his hand, he held a small bouquet of wildflowers, which he shyly extended to the girl. Here, these are for you. I'm sorry, I didn't know what flowers you prefer. but the nature here is amazing, so I thought maybe the local flora would please you." Anna looked up at him, her dark grey eyes wide with surprise. Robert's face gradually flushed with a gentle blush, exactly like the one that must have appeared on her skin now. "Oh, thank you. I'm very touched," the pediatrician said, accepting the bouquet from him. "These are truly beautiful flowers, better than any roses, really." A timid hope lit up in Robert's eyes. "I was thinking, maybe you wouldn't mind going to the dance with me. We're having something like a disco at the end of the evening. It's funny, of course, grown men dancing to popular tunes. But still, I've been watching you since last week. Excuse my frankness, but Anna, I really liked you. So I would be very honored if you would spend this evening with me as my companion." Anna was speechless with delight for the first minute. To think the seemingly stern rescuer turned out to be such a gentle and vulnerable person. Truly, you never know what is hidden behind the facade of male brutality and outward calmness. Robert, it turned out, had been experiencing the same feelings as Anna all this time. "Of course, I will do you this honor," the girl replied playfully and smiled sweetly at her chosen one. "Just promise me you won't smoke much. You know, there's nothing worse than a partner who has smoked before dancing. I just really can't stand cigarette smoke." A bright and pleasant smile lit up Robert's face. "Oh, that wish I can easily grant," the young man said, imitating a fairy tale genie. "For I have never smoked and don't plan to start, so I obey and comply." The guy put his hands together in the characteristic genie gesture and bowed slightly. Anna, at that second, didn't know where to put herself from shame. "Oh, my lord, forgive my tactlessness," the girl exclaimed. "I should have guessed that many of your colleagues lead a healthy lifestyle. It's just that both of my previous admirers weren't averse to indulging in a cigarette from time to time, and I suffered terribly from it afterward." Anna looked into Robert's blue eyes and bit her tongue. What possessed her to mention past men? But today, the emergency service employee took her words with understanding. He seemed completely unfazed by the mention of the girl's past romances. Offering her his elbow, Robert, like a true gentleman, escorted her directly to the local community centre. There, the rescue service employees had already prepared a wonderful concert for all the students with jokes, poems, and even songs of their own composition. Anna particularly liked the latter and was very impressed by them. That evening, the girl heard a real bard song for the first time. "Thank you for this wonderful evening," she thanked her companion when the dancing ended, and they walked slowly under the blooming apple trees to the women's dormitory. "I haven't felt so, I don't know, so free, maybe, in a long time. It was so easy to get away from everyday worries and the ubiquitous hustle and bustle here." "Yes," Robert agreed, drawing out the word. "I always felt that this place had some special energy of its own." Robert continued, "It seems like nothing special, just a regular base in the Moscow region. But as soon as you drive a few kilometers away from Pryrochensk, it feels like a completely different world around you. No high-rises, no shopping centers at every turn. Just a calm and measured life where everyone can find their true place." Anna looked at Robert and couldn't believe her happiness. Here he was, a person who understood her inner state like no one else. No matter how much she loved the capital with its frantic pace of life, the bright, sometimes gaudy storefronts of ubiquitous cafes and shops, it was only here, many kilometers from Pryrochensk, that she truly felt what life was. It was as if all her senses were instantly heightened, giving her a secret, yet simple knowledge. Every person has their true calling. One only needs to follow it and the call of their heart. and then harmony and grace will surely come into your life. Anna, Robert looked at her unexpectedly seriously. Tell me, can we see each other again? Robert finished. Don't think me presumptuous. It's just that I feel something good could come of this between us. Of course, the girl assured him calmly. Let's exchange phone numbers. I'll text you as soon as I get back to Pririchensk. A joyful and slightly childlike smile appeared on Robert's face, and Anna's heart immediately fluttered, warmed by the bright feeling budding in her soul. Upon returning to Pririchensk, Anna thought a lot about what this amazing trip had given her. Should she write to Robert herself, or wait until he was free and made the first move? The girl's doubts were dispelled when a few days later she received the following message on her phone. We'll be in Pririchensk in a few days. Want to meet at VDNK? Without thinking for a second, and trembling all over with joy, Anna immediately replied, Yes, I'll be waiting impatiently. In response, the girl received a playful, smiley face, after which she exhaled with relief. It seemed a new stage was beginning in her life. The first date was followed by several more, and soon the relationship between the young people became truly serious. It seemed Robert and Anna couldn't spend a day apart. They were constantly texting, calling, and sending each other sweet postcards, just like young students who had just tasted their first real love. Less than 6 months later, Robert proposed to Anna. The girl, of course, agreed, promising the young rescuer that she would make him the happiest man in the world. I'm the one who should be promising you such things, silly, the pleasantly surprised Robert said to his bride. Remember, a man's duty is to take care of his woman and give her only love and joy, but also to protect her. You will never regret becoming my wife. Anna's parents approved of their daughter's choice. Robert inspired their trust and said normal, right things. And after talking with Stephen Baker, the girl's father, he became like a son to them. Although I grew up in an orphanage, the guy honestly confessed to them, I well understand what a real family should be like. Anna told me a lot about your relationship with Mary Baker. Robert finished, If I can come even a little close to something similar in my marriage with your daughter, I will be simply happy. It's good that you intend to make my daughter happy, Stephen Baker told him. But what about the fact that your job is dangerous? It might happen that you leave my Annie alone. And then what? Such a question did not faze Robert at all. All safety measures for transport and equipment are taken at our base. Monthly diagnostics, and in case of any damage, parts or technically important parts of the equipment are immediately replaced. Robert spoke to his fiancée's father as if reporting on the state of a service facility to his superior, clearly, precisely, so that the man would have no doubts. His work, although associated with a risk to life, was provided with everything necessary to avoid that very risk. As for Mary Baker, she accepted her future son-in-law as if he were her own son. The woman worried that Robert, being from an orphanage, had not received enough maternal warmth in childhood, and therefore, at every opportunity, she tried to feed the young man homemade pastries or hot, rich soup. Here, Robbie, try this, Anna's mother said, pouring the guy a bowl of her signature cabbage soup. I cooked it specially for you. I had a feeling you and Annie would drop by today. Robert was uncomfortable refusing, although Anna's mother's soups seemed a bit heavy for him. Thanking Mary Baker for the treat, he at the same time looked laughingly at Anna, who also understood everything, but couldn't stop her mother's fit of kindness. You've probably never tasted such cabbage soup before. Mary Baker continued to fuss around Robert. Anna can cook it too. Just don't forget to remind her more often. Otherwise, with her work lately, all she does is eat on the run. Mary Baker finished. And now she can't do that. After all, she's getting married. She'll have to feed him properly now and eat well herself so that you have a baby sooner, and a healthy one. Mom! Anna couldn't stand it, blushing like a boiled lobster. That's enough. What baby? We're not even married yet. The registration is only in a month. Anna insisted. Actually, Robert and I wanted to live for ourselves for a bit first, and only then think about children. An awkward silence hung in the air. Robert looked expressively first at his fiancée, then shifted his gaze to her parents' disappointed faces. A bit. How long is that approximately? Mary Baker asked with sadness in her voice. I hope you're not going to be one of those modern couples who think it's better to get 3 cats, a dog, and a parrot than to have a couple of healthy children. You're not like that, are you? What are you saying? No, of course not, Anna exclaimed immediately. Anna explained. And how could you even think of such a thing? Robert and I are absolutely normal people, and we will definitely have children, just not so quickly. I want to work a little longer, after all, to establish myself as a specialist first. My dear, but nothing prevents you from simultaneously pursuing your interests in pediatrics and being a mother, her father reasonably remarked. Stephen Baker added, We are not young anymore, and would like to hold grandchildren while we still have the strength. Anna just means, Robert unexpectedly joined the conversation, that she and I have decided to wait a year or two until we finally decide that we are ready for a baby to appear in our family. Robert assured him, No one is talking about taking away your joy of spending time with grandchildren, Stephen Baker. His future son-in-law reassured him. Well, if it's about that long, then all right, his father-in-law replied, chewing his lips. So be it. Live for yourselves for now. Just don't drag it out, okay? Stephen Baker finished. After all, Anna is already at the most suitable age. You never know what complications might arise during pregnancy if she wants to give birth after 30. Anna squeezed the spoon with all the strength she could muster. No matter how much she loved her parents, such anxiety about her condition and the possibility of giving birth caused her slight panic. The girl had always known she wanted to be a mother, but she wanted to decide herself at what age and how exactly it would happen. Her father and mother, however, constantly pressured her, frightening her by saying that her childbearing age had already crossed, in their opinion, all reasonable boundaries. Anna still had fresh memories of how upset Mary Baker was when she broke up with her last suitor. More precisely, the true reason for her upset was not her daughter's personal tragedy, but the fact that she hadn't thought of getting pregnant by the guy to, as her mother put it then, give birth for herself and thus close the painful issue in their family. Anna felt Robert squeeze her other hand under the table. His gaze seemed to tell the girl, Calm down. This changes nothing. We will still do what we want. Anna smiled at her fiancé and thought again about how lucky she was to meet a person who truly understood her. The Bakers had a modest wedding. On the groom's side, there were only a few of his best friends from the squad. On the bride's side, friends, relatives, and a couple of her father's good acquaintances, specially invited from the Department of Healthcare for the celebration. Anna and Robert decided not to have a lavish party on purpose. They planned to use part of the money saved on the down payment for a mortgage. The young couple dreamed of their own apartment, as Anna had been living with her parents all this time, and Robert was renting an apartment. However, Mary Baker and Stephen Baker gave the couple a truly royal wedding gift. Here, the bride's father said to Robert, handing him the keys to a brand new apartment. A 2-room apartment in the very centre, with a metro nearby. 10 minutes, and Annie can get to the clinic without traffic jams. And you'll also have the opportunity to shorten your commute to work a little. Robert didn't know how to thank his father-in-law, and so he just hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Stephen Baker," the groom said sincerely. "If you only knew how grateful Annie and I are." "Don't mention it," the bride's father waved him off. "I'm doing this primarily for my daughter, so she can live more comfortably. You take care of her and don't forget about grandchildren. Your mother and I will be waiting eagerly." The elderly surgeon reminded his son-in-law, then playfully wagged his finger at Robert. Anna, upon learning that she and her husband would now have their own apartment, shrieked with delight and threw her arms around her father's neck. "My beloved daddy," the girl said, tirelessly kissing her father's cheek. "You are the best, my dear. How did you and Mom manage this?" "Well, we saved up a bit. I won't hide it," Stephen Baker said, blushing with joy for his daughter. "Mom and I decided to prepare a family nest for you in advance. We're not monsters. We know how hard it is for young people to earn their own housing nowadays." Anna and Robert felt like the happiest people in the world at that moment. They looked confidently into the future and believed that a long and wonderful family life awaited them. The first 2 years flew by for the young family like a single moment. Anna worked at the clinic all the time, and in the evenings she turned into a desperate housewife, constantly cooking something delicious and unusual to please her husband, who returned late in the evening from his dangerous service. Robert, meanwhile, was constantly on call, in all sorts of extreme situations. Anna, of course, worried about her husband with all her heart and waited for his call with bated breath every time. However, God was merciful. Everything was all right. Despite the fact that Robert had to pull people out from under rubble, chase away fishermen who had lingered on a half-melted pond, and much more. And then a joyful event happened in their family. One evening, when Robert returned from work, Anna met him with eyes burning with happiness and cunning. "What is it, dear? What happened?" her husband asked his beloved wife. "I have a surprise for you," Anna confided, and led him into the living room. There, on an exquisitely set table, a festive dinner awaited Robert, such as he had not received from his wife in a long time. In the center, on a large painted porcelain dish, a large chicken baked French style in wine awaited him. Next to it, in a saucepan, were boiled sweet potatoes with rhubarb and the freshest seafood, which Anna had thoughtfully arranged on a separate plate. And on the other side of the table, in a tall vase, appetizing fruits were visible, and next to them stood a bottle of excellent wine and, for some reason, a carton of orange juice. "Wow," Robert exclaimed sincerely. "What's the occasion for such a celebration?" The man kissed his wife and looked at her questioningly. "Did you get a promotion?" "Well," Anna replied evasively, "you could say that. Only not the kind of promotion you're thinking of." "Oh? Interesting," the intrigued husband said, after which his wife sent him to wash his hands, and she managed to arrange clean napkins. She really wanted this evening to be remembered by them for a long time, and for that, everything had to look simply perfect. "So, what's the surprise?" Robert asked a little later, when she had seated him at the table and put steaming chicken on his plate. "I'm all impatient. I want to know." Robert playfully clinked his fork and knife, showing that he was very hungry and waiting for his wife's answer. "I'll tell you everything now. But first, please open the juice and the wine. I can have—" At first, Robert didn't understand his wife's hint and calmly began unscrewing the wine cork with a corkscrew when it suddenly dawned on him. "Wait, why did you specifically want juice?" Anna tried unsuccessfully to suppress a smile. She felt herself starting to blush again. She covered her lips with her hand and looked at her husband meaningfully. Are you saying you're pregnant? Robert asked softly. Anna lowered her eyes, then nodded affirmatively. Oh my God. Annie, we're going to have a little one. My dear, my sunshine. What happiness. I'm going to be a father. Do you understand? A father. Robert almost dropped the bottle, trying to jump up from the table and hug his wife. When he succeeded, he twirled Anna in a joyful waltz. The young woman laughed and did not take her eyes off her beloved husband for a minute. Think of all the things we have to do now. The man, excited by the happiness of impending fatherhood, said hastily. Robert continued. And we already need to decide where the nursery will be. Choose a crib. Have you told your parents yet? Not yet, his wife replied, shaking her thick hair and not stopping laughing. We'll tell them together when we go to Mom and Dad's next weekend. Robert nodded understandingly. Oh my God, Anna, I thought this was happiness. A beloved wife and a hot dinner every day, a loyal rear, support. But this is something completely different. How I love you, my dear. How I love you. Anxious, yet wonderful, weekdays began for the Bakers. Everything seemed to remain as before. But now, every evening, they were busy with the affairs of all future parents. Together, they chose a stroller for the baby, dreamed of how they would paint the wall where they would put the baby's cradle. They argued about whether they would have a boy or a girl, and what name they would give their future child. One day, when Anna was already 3 months pregnant, she and Robert decided to spend their day off culturally, and so they went to the theatre. They were performing a new production of The Flying Dutchman, and Anna really wanted to see it. The performance struck the young woman with its sets and the power of the actor's performance. The evening promised to be completely unforgettable, as after the theatre Robert suggested stopping by a restaurant as well. But after such a 3-hour spectacle, we definitely need to refuel with something unusual, Robert said happily to his wife as they left the Bolshoi Theatre. You must be terribly tired. I would be a terrible husband if I made you cook something at home after all this. No, let's go. Let's eat somewhere nice. If you do that, you'll be simply the perfect husband, Anna agreed. Honestly, I'm ready to eat an elephant right now, or at least a hippopotamus. Those tiny sandwiches in the theatre buffet didn't impress me at all. Dinner was magnificent. Anna was already preparing to remember this evening as one of the most wonderful in their life together, when something completely unimaginable happened. The couple was already heading out to the parking lot. Robert had called a taxi, and it was due any minute, when 3 unfamiliar men blocked their way. Judging by their dilated pupils and the strong smell, these types were clearly under the influence of drink or some other substances, and the hands of all 3 were covered in tattoos that looked bluish in the autumn twilight. "Hey guys!" one of them shouted to the others, and the whole company instantly started examining the Bakers. Robert immediately understood what was happening and raised his hands peaceably. "Hey guys, don't worry. Let's go our separate ways like decent people. We don't need trouble. Here." The rescuer took his wallet from the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out all the cash he had. Robert finished. "That's all I have, guys, really. Take it, and go with God. My wife and I just want to go home, that's all," Robert said as calmly as possible. However, Anna, frozen in horror at that moment, felt with every cell of her body how tense her husband was. The tallest of the trio, and obviously the leader of this gang, looked at the small amount Robert offered him, evaluating it. Then he took a couple of steps towards Robert and snatched the money from his hands with one quick movement. Like a monkey that had found a new toy at the bottom of a cage, the convict jumped happily in front of his henchmen. "Look, guys," he waved the bills in their faces. "People are understanding these days." Well, I like it, the second one drawled in a nasty voice, and then, out of nowhere, stared intently at the pregnant Anna. No fight, no chick for a quick one. The bald, stout man slowly stepped towards Robert's wife. Oh, this broad is pretty good, I think, the scoundrel said. Juicy. Robert instantly shielded his wife with his body, and Anna felt her mouth suddenly go dry. A second later, a nasty, sour lump rose from somewhere in her throat, making the woman instinctively grab her stomach, where the life of her little child was beginning. Fear. A vile animal. Fear for her husband's life and their unborn son or daughter. That's what Anna felt at that moment. She pressed herself against her husband's back, closing her eyes for a second. Don't come near her. Robert threw in his face and immediately took a fighting stance. One move, and you can say goodbye to your worthless life. Well, well, this pampered piece can talk too. The third criminal, who was quite muscular, replied instead of his comrade. Try saying that again. With these words, the villain pulled out a gleaming folding blade from his chest, suspiciously resembling a razor. What? Not so brave now, huh? The fat man guessed, pointing to his friend's hand. My buddies and I will quickly clean up your face so you know how to talk to respectable people. And your chick is coming with us. Don't worry, it's not far at all, to the nearest bushes. All three laughed like old hyenas. Robert seemed to turn to stone, completely ready for a deadly lunge. When I say so, just run. Don't look back, Robert whispered to his wife over his shoulder. No, I'll stay here with you. Anna whimpered pitifully into his jacket. What are you doing, Bunny? Come out to the big guys. The fat convict continued to coo in the meantime. The guys really want to play with you. They want to so much they'll finish off your boyfriend right now. Barely finishing speaking, all three rushed at her husband. Run! Robert shouted to his wife and immediately entered an unequal fight with the three ghouls. He began to deliver random kicks and punches, trying to drive the convicts away from him. The man couldn't perform any holds, as he risked slowing down too much, which would be a fatal loss for him. Anna darted off to the right, hoping to get around the brute with the razor. However, he was quick-witted and immediately delivered a powerful blow to the woman's stomach. Where are you dropping, Otter? The convict hissed and grabbed Anna by the hair, pulling her close. The woman felt a terrible stench from his breath first, and then the cold blade pressed against her delicate neck. Robert! She screamed, and Robert immediately lost his guard, which resulted in a crushing blow to his jaw, and he fell to his knees. No, oh! Anna cried out in a fit of despair and kicked the villain in the groin with all her might. Despite the pain in her stomach, she could not allow the criminals to deal with her husband like this, before her eyes. Beat him, guys, the tall guy shouted, and he and the fat man began kicking Robert in the stomach and head. Anna managed to break free from the brute's deadly grip for a second. However, he managed to slash her across the chest with the razor. Lowering her head to it, the girl saw a crimson stream staining her light dress. Come here! The bastard roared and plunged the weapon directly into Anna's stomach with a short, precise thrust. The surrounding world instantly turned into one large, blurry spot for the woman. The pain was so unbearable that Anna forgot how to breathe. Whispering her husband's name one last time, she fell and plunged into utter darkness. At the edge of her consciousness, Anna managed to catch the wail of police sirens. Obviously, the restaurant staff had finally heard the noise in the backyard and called the police. An ambulance arrived with the police, but the baker no longer saw this. A sticky, cold darkness surrounded her from all sides. Anna! Annie! Can you hear me, dear? It's me, your husband, Robert. With great difficulty, Anna opened her eyes. Above her was an perfectly white ceiling, which at first even blinded the woman with its light. Next to her, Anna heard a nasty beeping sound. Specialized medical devices were monitoring her condition. Baker felt a long plastic tube inserted into her nose, through which cool air was flowing. Then the woman felt someone gently and tenderly squeezing her hand. "Robert," she said very weakly, "is it really you? Alive?" Her husband's face, leaning over her, confirmed. "It's me, tough cookie. Thank God. But you scared me very much, dear. I thought I had lost you." It took Anna exactly half a second to recall all the events that preceded her stay in the hospital. "The baby!" the young woman exclaimed in a pale voice and immediately pressed her hand to her stomach. It was completely flat and tightly bandaged. "Our baby, Robert. What about him?" Anna asked her husband, already anticipating the worst. Instead of answering, the man just lowered his eyes, then ran a nervous hand through his hair. "The doctors fought for your life for so long. They had no choice. Our baby couldn't be saved anyway. I'm so sorry, dear. So sorry." "No, not that. It can't be." Anna broke into hysterics. Just then, the attending physician rushed into the ward. "What have you done?" The elderly surgeon looked angrily at Robert, while trying to restrain the woman thrashing in convulsions. "Who gave you permission to give the patient such news when she herself is on the verge of death? Leave the ward immediately. Nurse, nurse, bring me a sedative quickly." The doctor addressed the nurse, who ran up at the same second. "It's better to tell her right away," Robert said grimly, getting up from the chair with difficulty. "It would have been even more painful later." The surgeon looked at him, then shook his head sternly. "I understand everything. You're both in shock. But that didn't give you the right to risk your wife's health like this." Robert seemed to have let the surgeon's words go in one ear and out the other. He looked at the sobbing Anna with a sense of absolute hopelessness. His beloved was almost dying, and she had also lost their child. And he, an employee of the rescue service, had been unable to prevent it. "Anna, I'll come back tomorrow," her husband said with tears in his eyes, and left the ward. The hardest part for Anna was yet to come. After a long and agonizing recovery, the doctor delivered an unfavorable verdict. Due to the injuries she had sustained, she would never be able to have children again. The young woman was absolutely crushed. Upon arriving home, Anna didn't remember what was happening around her during those moments. All the days merged into one bleak grey streak. Robert tried to reach out to his wife somehow, to shake her out of this comatose state, but it was all in vain. Her parents, no less depressed by their daughter's condition than her husband, also tried to talk to Anna on their part. However, she didn't react to anything at all. No one but Robert and her family knew how hard it was for Anna to get up every morning to return to even a semblance of herself. Only after almost a year was she able to consciously perceive the reality around her again. The pain of losing the child was still too fresh to completely forget what she had experienced, and the woman's stomach now forever bore the marks of that monstrous evening. Scars. Anna hid them under dark and thick clothing. She could no longer wear a swimsuit or a light summer dress. She constantly felt that strangers would stare at her terrible cuts. Even with Robert, she now behaved coldly and reservedly. And it wasn't that she blamed him for what had happened in any way, but she knew what torment he himself must have been experiencing, and therefore no longer considered displays of their love appropriate. At least, not until this whole story completely dissolved into the everyday life that continued. To recover and distract herself from the inconsolable grief, Anna went back to work. Despite the fact that it was unbearably painful for her to look at other people's children every day, the woman increasingly caught herself thinking that she was slowly, little by little, feeling better. The pain very slowly, but surely, receded somewhere to the very bottom of her soul, leaving behind only calmness bordering on indifference. For a start, even this was salvation for Anna. And then, when she seemed to have just found solid ground beneath her feet, her whole world again shattered into tiny particles from which she could no longer assemble anything. This happened exactly 3 years ago, a year before Anna finally moved to Ust-Tayozhny. Robert had gone on a business trip somewhere north to Siberia. Terrible fires raged there that year, and Anna's husband was called along with other rescue service employees to extinguish the fire from helicopters by dropping a special fire-suppressing suspension. The most terrible thing, which Anna blamed herself for ever since, was that she felt absolutely nothing, calmly letting her beloved husband, her only relative, go on that cursed business trip. 2 days after Robert left, she received a call from an unknown number. "Ah, Anna Baker," a strange male voice said on the phone. "Yes, this is she. Who is speaking?" "This is Captain Victor Carter of the Emergency Response Team. Your husband, Robert Baker." Anna's heart immediately dropped into her stomach. It became difficult not just to speak, but simply to think. "Yes," the woman replied, barely audibly. "Anna Baker, be strong. Your husband died heroically while fighting a fire in a forest belt." Anna felt as if the floor beneath her was slowly moving away. Clutching the edge of the table to keep from falling, the pediatrician asked again, "What do you mean, died?" "No, there must be some mistake. He only flew out 2 days ago. I'm very sorry," the captain said a little more gently. "Your husband's helicopter got into a difficult situation. One of its blades failed, after which the entire aircraft crashed into the river. We found the body of one of the pilots immediately, but your husband's... Perhaps the current carried him downstream. Our divers are already searching the entire area there." Something inside Anna twitched weakly. Perhaps it was the last strands of her nerves. "Wait, are you saying Robert's body hasn't been found yet? But that could mean he had a chance. Maybe he's still alive. Maybe he was washed ashore somewhere and needs help." There was a sad sigh on the line. "If only it were that simple, Anna Baker," Carter replied. "The height they fell from was considerable, plus the damage to the helicopter was such that... In short, if I were you, I wouldn't have any special illusions. But our team is doing everything necessary right now to effectively search that entire area as much as possible." Anna answered the captain coldly and decisively. "Fortunately, Captain, you are not in my place, and you are unlikely to ever be. I will come on the first available flight. I want to personally participate in the search for my husband." "Please, Anna Baker, you don't need all this, honestly," Carter warned her in a fatherly tone. However, the rescuer's wife was a straightforward person when it came to preserving her family. "Let me decide what I should and shouldn't do, Captain. Give me the address. I'll come." After warning her parents and superiors, the woman went to the heart of the taiga. Together with members of the search and rescue team, Anna scoured the forests there back and forth, but alas, found no trace of Robert. "I told you you were just upsetting yourself for nothing," Captain Carter complained about Anna's arrival. "We didn't really achieve anything anyway." "No," Anna said firmly. "My husband will be considered missing until you find his body. Only then will I accept that he is dead. Until then, you must continue the search for as long as possible." Exhausted, Anna returned to Pryrochensk, and the search for her husband continued for several more months. However, it was all in vain. Finally, the woman came to a difficult decision for herself: to leave everything in the capital and move to live permanently in a remote tiger village. This turned out to be Ustayozhny. "Daughter, dear, come to your senses." Mary Baker, devastated by the whole situation, pleaded with her. "I understand that the grief of losing your Robbie will forever remain in your heart. But you want to leave not only your job and home, you want to leave us too." Anna's elderly mother held back her tears with her last strength. "Mom, forgive me, but this is the only thing I truly need right now," the pediatrician explained to her. "I can't stay here anymore. Everything reminds me of Robert and how much we had together, how much connected us, and how much we lost." Mary Baker looked at her daughter with an attentive, understanding gaze. "Promise me you'll at least write to me," her mother asked pleadingly. "Of course, Mommy, my dear," her daughter assured the elderly woman, hugging her. "As soon as I settle in, I'll write right away. I've already arranged with the local hospital. They're taking me right away in my specialty, can you imagine? The staff is very small, only about 10 people, so there's no need to worry about rumors about me." "Oh dear, rumors are such a disease," Mary Baker said, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief. "Even if you don't want them, they'll appear out of thin air. You're a new person to them, so at first they won't trust you. They'll watch you. Be patient for a bit. Maybe you'll fit into their way of life. Just write to me, dear. Don't forget about your mother and father." Anna hugged her mother tenderly and promised her that everything would definitely be all right with her. The next morning, she was already sitting on a plane carrying her to the distant, unknown Siberian lands. When Anna woke up the next morning after a difficult night full of dreams mixed with memories, her head ached so much that the woman didn't know what to do with herself. After taking 2 painkillers, Anna somehow made her way to her medical station, hoping that the fresh air and the scents of forest herbs would cheer her up a little. However, as soon as the woman delved into the documents, the milkmaid Susan burst into her office. "Dr. Baker, Dr. Baker, help! You are our only hope left," Susan said, breathless from running. "Susan? What is it? Calm down. Catch your breath. Shall I get you some water?" "No time." The blonde, plump woman waved her hand. "Get ready." "Where?" Anna didn't understand. "Little Daisy Miller, the granddaughter of our healer Barbara, is very ill." Susan continued. "I was at their house the other day, there, in the forest." Susan vaguely gestured around her. "Little Daisy was already, you could say, wasting away before my eyes back then. And this morning I brought them milk, and Barbara told me, 'Call your doctor here, my potions aren't helping.'" Anna had heard something about the local hermit Barbara Miller. The elderly woman, who was rumoured to be over 100, rarely appeared in the village, preferring to buy food and things through local residents. Anna didn't approve of the women going to the healer, but she couldn't do anything about it either. They had been accustomed since childhood to consulting her on all matters related to women's issues. The only thing Baker hoped for was that they would be smart enough not to entrust their lives and the lives of their small children to the midwife. Not so long ago, however, a rumour spread in the village that Barbara had a granddaughter. But no matter how hard Anna herself tried to visit her to check on the baby, she couldn't find the old witch's forest hut. And Barbara's daughter, Catherine, flatly refused to see doctors. She and her grandmother were, in principle, as Anna understood, against modern technology and medicine. "But they've ruined the child with their herbs," Anna exclaimed anxiously, and immediately got ready to go. "How old is this little Daisy anyway?" Susan thought for a minute. "She seems to be very young, about a year old at most." Even better, Baker said, shaking her head. Susan, can you take me that way to Barbara's? Every time I go there, I get lost. Susan looked at the pediatrician strangely, then mumbled quietly, Strange. Somewhere. Interesting, the milkmaid replied more loudly. All right. Just follow me closely. The area is swampy. It's easy to stumble. Half an hour later, the two women were walking through the impenetrable forest thicket. Susan walked easily and briskly, almost flying over the snags and sharp branches that seemed to avoid the village resident. For Anna, however, this journey turned into a real hell. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, where the miller's neat little hut stood, Anna felt squeezed dry, and she was also all scratched by the local trees and bushes. Here we are, Susan said contentedly, pointing to the healer's house. With your permission, I'll go home. I still have 1,000 chores to do. Of course, go, she nodded at the milkmaid. Thank you for your help. It's amazing how I couldn't find their house all this time myself. It doesn't seem like a long walk at all, but every time I seem to get lost. Susan glanced at Anna slightly suspiciously. Who knows why the old witch didn't let her near her house? Susan thought on her way back. Susan mused. It means she thought it was necessary. Maybe she felt some competition from her, after all. Anna was a doctor, and a real one at that. Barbara and Catherine never liked doctors. Anna, left alone, hurried up to the porch of the hut and quietly knocked on the slightly open door. The pediatrician received no answer. Then she decided to go inside herself, without an invitation. The atmosphere inside was as mystical as could be, as if Anna had visited Baba Yaga herself. Bunches of various herbs hung everywhere. Jars with incomprehensible preserves stood around, and there was a sharp smell of juniper and spruce needles. The young woman went into the living room, hoping that the sick child was lying somewhere here. The room was quite ascetic. An old oak table, a couple of chairs, a kerosene lamp, a chest of drawers, and a couple of framed photographs. One of them showed a girl in a sundress-like dress, similar to those burned in the spring during Maslenitsa. She stood embracing a very old, wrinkled woman, like a dried olive. Apparently these were Barbara and her daughter Catherine. My God, how old is Catherine then? Anna thought to herself in surprise. If it's true that her mother is 100, then this woman is definitely a witch, and she even managed to have a child. Anna put the photograph back in its place and looked at the second picture. And that's when something inside her seemed to break. What have you come for? A cawing old woman's voice sounded behind Anna. If I had my way, you would still be wandering through the swamps. But it seems a hopeless situation has arisen today. The tiger itself let you through to me. Baker slowly turned to the healer, meeting the gaze of her unkind black eyes like a raven's pupils. Barbara turned out to be very petite, less than half of Anna's height, but nevertheless looked very determined and a little hostile. Where did you get this? Anna asked, pointing her finger at the second photograph. There, with a thick beard and long hair hanging down, stood her Robert. Of course he had changed a lot externally, had become rougher, and his gaze had become unsociable. But it was definitely him. You will put the thing back, the old woman told her sternly. It's not yours, so there's no need to look. Anna's lips trembled slightly, and her knees instantly went weak, turning to cotton, just like when she had tried to run away from the bandit. I won't do anything until you tell me where you got this photo, Anna almost shouted in the healer's face. The woman chewed her colourless, dry lips for a moment, then finally answered, You'd better ask him. You'll see him soon. He also went to the city after you. But you missed each other. God knows. That's your fate. Barbara sighed heavily, then asked emphatically, "Well, are you going to treat my child or not? Why did I call you here?" Anna felt as if she had woken up from a long sleep. Everything inside her was trembling. "Show me your granddaughter." The doctor finally nodded and followed the healer into a small room, the ceiling of which was even lower than in the living room. Here, in a tiny crib, lay a little pale girl, only her cheeks were burning with an unusually bright blush. "Is this little Daisy?" Anna asked, immediately getting to work. She examined the baby and stared at Barbara in horror. "Well, how is she?" "She's been ill like this since the day before yesterday, and she's only getting worse. I don't understand why my remedies aren't helping her." "Do you understand that your granddaughter has pneumonia?" Anna asked loudly, her eyes flashing. "The girl needs hospitalization immediately. Thank God Susan brought me to you. A little longer, and you would have lost the child. Do you understand that?" The healer's face wrinkled even more, as if she had bitten into a sour apple. "Don't shout. I understand," the old woman replied submissively. "No, I'm just wondering where her mother is," Anna asked, looking angrily at the elderly woman. "No, it's just unbelievable to let it get this bad. That's it. Now she needs an IV, and we can only pray that little Daisy recovers." The child made a weak sound under the pediatrician's hands. "Oh my God, she's burning up," the woman said, and took a syringe and an ampule of medicine from her bag. "And what is that?" "And you're going to inject her?" Barbara asked distrustfully, looking at the ampule. "Meaning, microchip my granddaughter? I won't allow it." And the healer blocked Anna's access to the crib. "Calm down. This is a standard fever reducer used in such cases for children," Anna replied confidently, looking her in the eyes. The old woman hesitated, but then moved aside, allowing her to give her granddaughter the injection. "Now she should start feeling better," Anna said, and looked at the healer. "What words you know. Microchip my granddaughter. Unbelievable. And how am I supposed to know what's in the heads of you outsiders?" the healer asked indignantly. "Look, Catherine, my adopted daughter, went into the forest the day before yesterday and never returned. Maybe your colleagues took her for experiments?" In the next moment, large tears rolled down Barbara's cheeks. Anna realized that the woman was not entirely in her right mind, and it would be better if she took the girl with her to the hospital. Amidst all these thoughts, the pediatrician almost forgot about the mysterious photograph she had seen in the old woman's living room. However, in the next minute, the solution to this mystery appeared in person. "Doctor, is she all right?" Robert asked, with unconcealed anxiety in his voice. I was practically begging Barbara, lying at her feet, to let me call a real doctor here. Anna carefully turned to the man, trying not to faint herself. Her lost husband stood right in front of her, exactly as he was in that photograph. "Robert!" was all Anna, pale as a sheet, could utter. "Tell me it's true. You? I'm not imagining things, am I?" The man looked at her for a minute with a bewildered gaze. Then a spark of recognition flickered in his eyes, and then he grabbed the door to keep from collapsing onto the floor. Memories crashed into his mind like an avalanche. "Haven't you ever seen our village doctor?" the old woman asked, shifting her gaze from Anna to Robert and back. "Why is she calling you Robert? Did they call you that in your past life?" And then Barbara looked closely at the pediatrician, and only then said with dislike, "So, it was you he was calling for when he was delirious?" Barbara finished. "And I was wondering why I didn't like you right away. I felt you were connected. But I didn't think it was so tightly, that your thread stretched across the whole country. Anna, my dear, it's me, Robert. You see everything correctly, darling. How could I forget everything? Despite the distance separating them, Robert took 2 wide steps towards his wife, who was crying with happiness, and squeezed her in a strong embrace. I knew it. I knew it. I knew you were alive, Robert. I talked to you every night, prayed for you. I felt that you didn't crash in that helicopter. But who? Barbara and Catherine. And how did you end up here? Her husband looked at her with anxiety, but with boundless love, and then said, I'll tell you everything. But please, let's take my daughter to the hospital first. I'm very worried about her condition. Daughter? Anna said in surprise and recoiled from Robert. So, Catherine had a child by you? A tense silence hung between the couple for a minute, and then Anna managed to compose herself and said somewhat dryly, Yes, you are right. A child's life is paramount. Picking up the girl, the man hurried to leave the hut. He easily led Anna out of the forest thicket, back to the village, and, under the surprised glances of the villagers, carried his daughter straight to the hospital. When little Daisy had received all the necessary help, and Anna was sure that the baby's life was no longer in danger, she sank wearily onto the small sofa in her office. Can we talk? Robert said softly, entering the room. Anna raised her eyes, red from worry and tears, to him. Is there anything left for us to talk about? She asked in a colourless voice. The man cautiously entered the office and locked the door behind him. Anna, I have so much to tell you, he began. And before that, I want to assure you, if I could have remembered even one day of our life together earlier, I would have immediately returned to you in Prirachensk, honestly. The woman smiled sadly in response. Apparently you were so well off here that you didn't even have to remember anything. Nothing stirred in your soul while you were hiding with these forest witches? Her husband grabbed her hands and made her look him in the face. No, Anna, you misunderstood everything. I just couldn't remember anything, do you understand? I couldn't. And Robert began his sad story. I was carried away by the blast wave directly into the river. I don't really remember how it happened. I just felt a strong jolt and a few seconds of free fall, and then cold and pain. When Barbara found me on the shore, I was badly injured, unconscious. She and her daughter Catherine managed to drag me to their hut, and there... The man sighed nervously. Robert continued. I spent the next 6 months there, practically unconscious. These women nursed me back to health. No matter what anyone says, some of their concoctions do have incredible healing power. I don't know. Maybe it was something like a coma. And only when I finally woke up, I was like a blank slate, you see? I didn't even remember my name. I didn't know who I was. Robert rubbed the bridge of his nose, as if wanting to erase all the terrible things that had happened to him from his memory. Anna listened, without interrupting. She wanted to know the whole truth from him, all the way to the end. I had to learn to walk again. Something is wrong with my back, so I can't always keep my balance now. But it's not terrible, if you don't try to run too fast and don't pick up too heavy loads. My daughter doesn't count, he added, and lowered his eyes. Catherine was with me from the very beginning. She nursed me, fed me with a spoon. In short, she brought me back to life. I'm sorry, but it's true. A bitter smile appeared on Anna's face. How touching. The woman silently admitted to herself that she was tormented by jealousy. And then, I started walking again, precisely because I had completely lost my memory. I decided to stay here for a while, until I remembered who I was, and if I had a family. Naturally, I helped the women with household chores, hunted, but I did all this without leaving the forest, you see. Barbara convinced me that I might have been an escaped criminal, and then there would surely be a wanted notice for me at the police station. I tried to explain, Robert said to his wife. There was one, Anna replied distantly. Only on that notice you were listed as missing. Anna covered her face with her hands, unable to process all this information. Oh my God, I searched for you for so long, and you— I'm alive, Robert replied firmly. I'm alive and sitting here, trying to explain everything to you. But how do you explain your daughter? His wife led him to the main point. Robert looked somewhere into the distance, for a moment lost in his own thoughts. I love little Daisy very much, and want to take her with me when everything is over and she is completely recovered. Robert explained. It was a moment of weakness, Anna. You must understand. I didn't remember anything. Absolutely nothing. And Catherine was so kind to me. When she said she was pregnant, I understood that no matter what happened, I would take care of my daughter. His wife turned away. She didn't want Robert to see her face right now. Only Catherine is gone now, Anna. What? The woman didn't understand. Catherine is gone? Remember, Barbara said she went into the forest and hadn't been home for 3 days. Well, today I found her. What happened to her? Anna whispered, sensing something bad. She's dead, Robert replied curtly. Oh my God! Anna exclaimed and covered her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming. How did it happen? Her husband rubbed his palms, sweaty with fear. Anna had never seen him so frightened. Apparently she went to gather herbs and berries, but, in short, it was a bear. I only recognized her by her dress and her basket. Anna felt her legs turn cold. Are you going to tell Barbara? Robert just shook his head. I suspect she's already guessed. Let her think her daughter drowned in the swamp, rather than learn such a terrible truth from me. They have slightly different concepts of death here. I buried Catherine there, in the forest. Robert finished. So, Barbara, God willing, won't stumble upon her. The tiger gave, and the tiger took back. Barbara said she found Catherine as a lonely teenager. She was supposedly hiding in the forest from her stepfather. So she took the girl in. Don't be angry with her, Anna. She was truly a very good person. What? How can I now, after learning something like that about her? Anna felt shame burning fiercely inside her. Alas, only after hearing about Catherine's death could she see her as a person who had saved her husband's life, not a cunning temptress. Anna, Robert asked quietly, let's leave here when little Daisy gets better. Shall we leave? Can you forgive me? Anna looked into her husband's blue eyes and at that very second made the only right decision. Of course, Robert. I am still your wife. And so it happened. As soon as little Daisy recovered, Robert and Anna, quickly packing for the journey, were ready to take a bus to the nearest airport that very evening. From there, a helicopter could take them to the mainland, and from there, they could get to Prerachensk by regular plane. Robert wanted to go say goodbye to Barbara when Susan shocked him with tragic news. It turned out the old healer had passed away the night before. Apparently, she couldn't bear the loss of her daughter, the milkmaid suggested then. And her age, nobody knew exactly how old Barbara was. Anna, upon learning of the old woman's death, even shed a tear. No matter how she felt about her and her unconventional methods of treatment, she never wished her such a fate. Don't worry, Dr. Baker, Susan assured her. We will bury Barbara properly, according to Christian custom. The pediatrician thanked the kind village woman and, saying goodbye to everyone except the persistent medical assistant Adams, left with her husband and little Daisy back to Prirachensk. Upon returning home, their first order of business was to officially adopt little Daisy and restore all of Robert's documents. Anna's parents were happy to learn that their son-in-law was alive after all. They threw a big party for the occasion, and little Daisy became the long-awaited granddaughter they had been waiting for almost 10 years after their daughter's wedding. Robert returned to work in the rescue service, but due to his injury, he could no longer work in the field, so he returned to where he had started. Now he consults and trains young recruits. He is now full of strength and energy and wants to make his life calmer and more constructive, dedicating most of his time to raising his daughter and his beloved wife. Anna continued working at the clinic, returning to her previous duties. As before, she treats children, only now she has her own little daughter waiting for her at home, whom she loves more than life and for whom she thanks God every day. Thus, having gone through a series of misfortunes and trials, the Baker family finally found a second chance at happiness. And this time, they are not going to miss it.